What's up, guys? I'm Landon from Shoewear, and now that we have officially reached the midway point of the year, I've taken some time to put together my top 5 basketball shoes for performance that have been released so far. So this is one of the tougher lists that I've done, partly because there haven't been a ton of releases so far for 2022, but also there were a few tough choices that I had to leave off my list. My honorable mention probably goes to the Nike PG6 around that 6th spot. They did just miss the cut. It's kind of a toss-up between those and the first shoe that we're going to look at, so that's long enough for the intro. Let's go ahead and get it started with number 5. Getting us started at number 5 is the newest shoe to make the list, the Nike KD15. These were released within the last month, retailing for $150, and that does match the price of the previous 2 models for his line as well. So just to kind of lay the groundwork, in order to make this list, these shoes are either going to be one of the best out there on the market in a certain category like cushion, traction, something along those lines, or they just don't really have a weakness and they just play really well balanced. And this is going to be one of those models that's going to fall more on the well-rounded side for shoes for this KD15. But before I get into the performance side and just taking a quick look at the appearance, the KD15 is going to be more of like a low top design. That is something that, I guess KD wanted to get back to doing. So I know, like the 12s, 13s, and 14s were all more of a mid top. The 11 was his last low top design. So we are kind of finally getting back to doing that. But you're going to have a bunch of differentiated textures and like overlays on this upper that I'm going to hit on more in the material section here in just a second. But I think it does add to the appearance and just give these a really clean look. And similar with most KDs, his player logo is going to show up on the tongue. Then on the pull tab, you get the word Easy. Since KD's nickname, I guess, and like his Instagram handle, like social media handle and stuff like that, is Easy Money Sniper. And the same Easy text is actually going to show up on the inside of the box for these two. Then I also like the Air Zoom that's kind of built into the midsole. That is a little similar to last year's KD14 model. And these did lose the strap that was on the KD14s though. I'm not really surprised, but straps generally show up and work a little bit better on like mid or high top designs. That's not always the case, but you do have more shoe to work with just whenever you're doing that. But you do get a reverse Nike swoosh on the inside of the upper here that looks really tough. And honestly, the PG6 just came out and they did the same thing. And I think the PG6 and KD15 have a few similarities just as far as the look goes, and even some of like, the performance stuff as well. But to wrap it up, the heel for these has like a really cool wave pattern along with the number 7. And that's going to be the number that he wears for the Nets. We'll see what team he ends up playing for this upcoming season. But I am actually pretty big on this year's design. But now getting into more of the performance and starting off with the cushioning, the KD15 gets a full-length Air Zoom strobel unit that is stitched directly to the upper. And by doing that, it's meant to help kind of cut out unnecessary weight and just provide full foot responsiveness. And you get some additional full-length foam too, which is going to add to like a soft and comfortable feel sensation. And it's just going to be running to give you like optimal energy and just a lasting performance is what they were going for with that whole setup. So cushioning is something that I was pretty high on for last year's model. And I would say that KD's line, just overall, it's one of the better performing shoes for the cushioning category year in and year out. And that's going to stay the same here for this KD15. And something I noticed on this year's model though is that you can really feel that unit up in the forefoot on like all of your movements. Like it feels springy and very responsive. Like I noticed that the first few times I was playing in these, it is somewhat similar to how the Kyrie 8s play, just maybe not quite as spring loaded. But as far as break-in time, I really didn't need much on here at all. Like they loosen up pretty quick and the sock liner does feel padded, which is just going to add to an overall soft feel. So cushioning is definitely one of the better aspects on this shoe in my opinion. But now looking at more of the materials and the support, the upper on these has a few different materials at play that do feel quality. Like you can tell Nike didn't really cut the cost here, which was nice. So the KD15 has a multi-layered mesh upper that is meant to be lightweight and also give these shoes that like already broken in feel before you even play in them. And the mesh, along with keeping this a low top design, is going to lead to these being on the lighter side than his previous model at least. This year's KD15 weighs 436 grams for a size 10.5, and that doesn't make them the lightest shoe on this list. It's also not going to be the heaviest. It's pretty average as far as the weight goes, to maybe ranging on the slightly lighter side. But one of the biggest changes that Nike did was taking away that strap that ran across the upper, and instead they put in a modified midfoot containment system that you feel especially when you tighten the laces. And I'm going to be honest right now, like that is going to be pretty important because the first time that I played in these, I was dealing with a little heel slippage, and that was like kind of concerning. I didn't really love that. I've experienced that with some other shoes in the past, like Harden's line sometimes struggles with that. But once I actually took the time to tighten these up more, that did go away. So I would just say make sure you're like paying a little extra attention to getting them pretty tight because you may not love the lockdown otherwise. And the heel is going to be crafted to kind of like help lock in and support your Achilles. I think Nike did place a special interest on that because KD has been having some injuries related to his Achilles over the last few years. And then along with all of that, there is going to be some added thickness and some certain spots on the upper to kind of help with the support. And the laces actually feed through an overlay that whole Nike swoosh design is on. And when you tie that tight, you can really feel that help with the lateral containment just to keep your foot within the design. So I mean, aside from the minor heel slippage that was a quick and easy fix for me, the KD15 is really nice for both the support and the materials categories. And to finish off with traction, the KD14s played really well last year, and these are going to pick up right where that model left off. I mean, as far as the pattern goes, I was more of a fan of like the little ovals and the lines that was in that KD14. This 15 model has some like grooves and ridges on the sole to help provide with like multi-directional traction and a good on-court feel, and they are going to do that. Like last year's outsole did feel a little softer than the 15s here too, and you're going to get more of a random traction pattern on this design, and I don't normally love that, but just playing in these, you can tell that they are going to be sticky, and they give you plenty of bite on the court. I would say they are a little bit of a dust collector though, especially on some dirtier courts. But I mean, one swipe and you're pretty much, ready to fix all of that. But to finish off with sizing, I did go true to size. That worked out perfect for me. You're gonna have a little extra room maybe in the toes, but I wouldn't call this a wide model. Pretty standard as far as like maybe slightly narrow for the width. But so keep that in mind if you think about going a half size down. But overall, the Nike KD15 adds to another well-performing shoe to Kevin Durant's line. Like there really isn't a weakness on this model. From the cushioning to the traction to the materials, the support, Nike pretty much checked all of the boxes on these, which is why they get the 5 spot on my list. Coming in at number 4 is the Nike Air Zoom GT Jump. These released earlier on this year, kind of around like January or February, retailing for $180. And the GT in the model name stands for greater than. And this was like the third and final release from that trio. You had a Nike GT Cut, a GT Run, and then this was obviously the final release. And this is arguably my favorite model of those three. So as far as the appearance goes, I think these look really tough. Like Nike hit on all 3 shoe heights. The GT Cut was a low top, the Run was more of a mid, and this GT Jump is clearly going to be a high top model. But something cool about this design is they kind of label what's in the actual shoe, like a lot of what materials are being used to construct them just on the shoe itself. So I'll kind of point those out here more in a second, but I just thought that was a cool concept. And then the tongue design is going to be really clean. The left shoe is going to have like own space for like the colorway name, and then on the right shoe you're going to get the Jump logo, but it's kind of like a translucent or a reflective look, so you can only see it at certain angles. So definitely a detailed shoe. And I also like how you have that gap in the midsole where you can clearly see like through the shoe. You got that like exposed eclipse plate that the last like 3 or 4 Jordan models have been using. But transitioning into more the performance side now and starting off with the cushioning, without a doubt that is where they put the most effort and just like the most stuff into this shoe. So taking a look at the outsole, you're going to see a list of a few different like cushioning features that are going to be used within this model, and it is a lot. Like first is going to be that system of air text in the front half, and that's going to signify a Zoom Air unit that's going to be in the forefoot, but it's actually running all the way to the back too, so you're also going to see it on the heel. Then on top of that is going to be a P-Bax jump frame, and on top of that is a full-length Air Zoom unit. That's a Strobel unit, sorry about that. And I mean, you can really feel those cushioning units in the back half of the shoe too. Like they're going to be exposed a little bit, and I mean, I feel like any more cushioning features built into this shoe and it just might pop. I already feel like I'm playing a couple inches higher off the ground than usual, but I mean, each shoe from this like greater than line was kind of geared for a specific style of play that were all kind of different. Like I thought that was a really cool concept. The GT Cut kept you lower to the ground for more of like you're cutting and changing directions quickly. The GT Run was like a mid-top model, and that focused more like on your running and like your energy return and stuff like that. And this GT Jump is going to focus your vertical jumping and your impact protection. So obviously a lot of attention was placed on the cushioning, and these did feel really nice to play in. Like it's pretty much little to no break-in time needed for this model, and for all of the cushioning packed into the shoe, they actually did keep it relatively light. And I mean, they're also going to have Cushlon in the midsole that's just going to make it even a little bit softer on top of everything else. But now taking a deeper look at the materials, these have a ton going on here too. So around the midsole, you're going to see that black piece on there that has some jump frame text, and that's just there to keep all of the cushioning intact. It just kind of acts like a brace to just keep all the cushioning under control anyways. And for the upper, these are going to be made out of a Nike jump wire setup that is marked out kind of near the ankle on that black strip, and that feels really secure to play in. And Nike used some lighter materials to make up this upper, and is using because of that wire design. I mean, a size 10.5 ends up weighing 484 grams, which honestly is not going to be the lightest shoe to make this list. It's actually going to be the heaviest on the list, but it's still not a heavy shoe necessarily, especially whenever you consider, everything that went into making these. And the support is going to be a really nice piece on these too. You're going to have a Nike swoosh near the back heel that kind of extends up a little bit, kind of acts like a heel counter to keep your foot secure. And along with that is going to be some fly wire cables that run up the side to help with your containment, with your lateral containment. And the lino weave upper does does feel pretty firm. Like I haven't noticed any movement whenever like I apply pressure, make those like really hard cuts. So really nice features on this GT jump for both the materials and the support. And to finish off with traction, that is going to be another strong point on this model. These are equipped with a traditional herringbone setup that is really nice. You're going to have some arrows kind of running horizontal in the middle, and then it shifts to running more vertical, kind of like a vertical formation around the edges of the shoe. So these have you covered for your front to back and your side to side movements, and it's going to be pretty sticky, a little more so than the KD15s. They still are going to collect some dust, but not quite as fast. And I mean, the grip has been really solid for the GT jump. But I mean, to finish off with sizing, I went true to size. You have a little extra room for the length. Not enough to where I change it though, because this is somewhat of a narrow model. So definitely keep that in mind. But I mean, overall, I am really impressed with this Nike GT Cut model. I mean, I'm surprised it took them so long to drop. Like, the GT Cut and the GT Run, I think they released like middle of the year to like somewhat later in the year in 2021. I mean, this is one of those models though that was definitely worth their wait. I mean, these released earlier on this year. There just really isn't a flaw for me to really bring up other than it being the heaviest shoe on the list. But I mean, aside from that, these played well all the way around, which is what lands him a spot at number 4. Next up at number 3 for the top 5 shoes of 2022 is the Curry Flow 9. These hit the market earlier this year around like January or February, retailing for $160. That is going to line up with the Curry 8s from the previous year. So starting off with the appearance, this is definitely one of my favorite shoes just as far as looks go on this list. Ever since Steph kind of branched off with Under Armour, kind of taking on his own side within the brand, starting off with the Curry 8s, I mean, his shoes have been so clean. Like, I really love the 8s, and I like these 9s here too. And Curry's new player logo is really tough, and it actually carries multiple meanings. So if you follow the design, you're going to see the S and the C kind of mixed in there for his initials, which, you know, is pretty standard. They do that with pretty much every player. But it's also meant to resemble flashing the 3-point sign, which, you know, Steph gets to do pretty often, being the league's all-time 3-point make leader now. So, I mean, the extra mark, even above that design on that like whole setup, is meant to represent like the high wing on the court. So I mean, I'm sure not everyone's gonna love it. It won't be everyone's favorite, but I thought it was a really cool change just compared to his more generic look that he had with Under Armour with just the S and the C. But I mean, getting into more of the tech specs now and like looking at the cushioning, these get a UA flow foam setup designed to keep these bouncy and lightweight, and they're definitely gonna check that lightweight box. The Curry Flow 9 only weighs 350 grams for a size 10.5. And honestly, that might be the lightest shoe that I've ever played in. It's at least really close, and they definitely do feel that way. I know it's the lightest one to make this list, but one thing I will say is that the Curry 8s, they did play a little bit softer than this year's Curry 9s do. Like, I feel like that will take some more time, or it has taken some more time to break these in, honestly. And I mean, as far as cushioning alone, I'd say the Curry 9 might be the worst performing shoe on this specific list. But now I'm going to go straight into traction, because the Curry 9 is going to be the best grip, the best performance for traction out of all 5 shoes on this list, without the best shoe withstanding. I mean, I haven't gotten to that one yet. It's pretty comparable there, but I would maybe lean towards the Curry 9 still. So these are going to have a UA flow outsole that has so much bite. Like, the traction is definitely the selling point on this model. You're going to get a random traction pattern, and you know, I don't always like that, but whenever it plays this well, it's just not even worth mentioning. The foam does feel like pretty soft though, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend playing in these outdoors. But now looking at more of the materials, I mean, these are going to have like a different look than last year's model, which was more of like a knit feel. The Curry 9s are going to get a UA warp upper, which has technology meant to provide an enhanced comfort and control just throughout all your basketball movements. And that is going to be paired with a breathable mesh tongue to assist with airflow to your foot. And I really do like it. Like, I didn't really hit on it in the appearance section, but I just think this weave design just it looks really cool. I mean, the weave pattern, I just like it for the optics alone, but it does feel pretty quality too. Like, I definitely wouldn't call this cheap material at all, which you would want on a slightly more expensive shoe at $160. But I will say something that I like better about these Curry 9s compared to the 8s is going to be the support. I mean, you sit really secure within this shoe. Like, once you slide your foot in, it almost feels like just kind of locks it into the model, and the upper doesn't stretch like much at all for the lateral, so the lateral containment just feels a lot better than that 8s. It had some more movement there. And as for sizing, I did go true to size on these, and I will say they fit a little bit snug. Like, it's slightly narrow on the shoes too, so you may be able to get away with going a half size up if you just want to have some more space in there. But I mean, overall, this is a really solid shoe that is kind of tough for me to rank on this list. I mean, like I mentioned, that the cushioning kind of lacks a little bit compared to the other 4 shoes, but the traction is top tier, and there really aren't any other weaknesses to point out. Plus, this is the lightest shoe by a decent amount to play in. I always love that. And that's all that together is going to be what earns them a spot at number 3 on my list. list. The runner-up coming in at number 2 is going to be the Nike Kyrie 8 Infinity. These came out early this year too. I want to say it was like January, February-ish with the release. And they have kept the same retail price at $130, just like the Kyrie 6 and the Kyrie 7 were at. So pretty middle of the pack there. But now checking out the appearance on these, pretty much all of Kyrie's shoes within his line have kind of followed that same mid-top structure, aside from the shoes that have been made to be specifically low, like Kyrie 4 low, the Kyrie 5 low, just different stuff like that. But with the Kyrie 8 getting more of like a curved midsole, these will fall a little more in line with the Kyrie 6 compared to the Kyrie 7s that had that like shark tooth design in that same spot. But I really do like the wavy heel design on the back of these Kyrie 8s. It does kind of remind me of the Dame 7 extended play line with Adidas, just how that whole heel was constructed. And this specific colorway is going to get an hourglass tongue, so just an all-around pretty nice setup on this design in my opinion. But now looking at more of the materials and the performance side, and starting off with the cushioning, the Kyrie 8s are going to have more cushioning packed inside of a Kyrie shoe than you would typically see. Like most Kyrie basketball shoes are going to have like cushioning units either in the front or in the back of the shoe, but this year's Kyrie 8 Infinity is going to get it in both of those spots. You're going to have a Zoom Air unit in the heel, which does feel good, but in the forefoot you get a Zoom Strobel setup that is just spring loaded. Like you feel it compressed with each and every step. It feels responsive and just it protects your foot really well whenever you're landing from a jump. And the cushioning is something that I knocked a little bit on the Kyrie 7s, but they did improve it here, which is really nice. It's pretty similar to the KDs, how you had that like, Zoom Strobel setup in the forefoot. But like I said, the KD 15s, I mean, they were nice, but the Kyrie 8s are just going to have a lot more bounce there. Like that's probably the best way that I can describe it. But as far as the materials go, the Kyrie 8s do have a micro-engineered upper that is pretty thin in the front half, but I mean, it does help keep the shoe super light. Size 10.5 is only going to weigh 400 grams even, making them the second lightest shoe on this list that we've covered so far, and that is actually where they're going to stay. But I mean, you're also going to get some nicer materials kind of positioned in the back half of the shoe near the ankle. That black patch is almost like a leather feel, and like I was saying earlier, that is going to resemble more so the Kyrie 6 than the Kyrie 7, which was just pretty much textiles covering the entire shoe. And the support is another highlight for this Kyrie 8 shoe for a few different reasons. The upper doesn't give on any harsh movements, and these black straps that kind of run under the laces, just around like the outside of the shoe that the laces feed through, those black wings are going to symbol like a strap that's going to run behind your foot and just like tightens your foot into the design. And then it's also going to run forward around your toes just to like help pull your entire foot into the shoe. It just makes you feel really secure, so I do like that. If you follow the blue lines around the toe box too, you can kind of see where it's marked out, just where that strap begins and where it ends. So I mean, support's never really a spot that Kyrie's line struggles with, and that's going to continue on here. But to finish off with traction, Nike went with like a data-driven traction pattern that has a better flow in my opinion compared to the Kyrie 7s, which was just a little bit too random for me. This is going to be closer to a traditional herringbone setup, and honestly they do look pretty similar to the Dame 7 extended play traction pattern, just to draw that comparison again. The outsole is going to extend a little bit from that inner pattern though, where the lightning bolt design is. Just thought that was a little unique. But I also bought a pair with an XDR outsole, which is just some more durable rubber, so I am happy about that. It'd be better for outdoor use. I wasn't really in love with how the traction played on the Kyrie 7s, but I would say it does feel better on this year's Kyrie 8. And then to finish off with sizing, I went true to size on these, and that worked out perfect for me. I mean, the length is really good and it's pretty standard for the width. So for me personally, I really do love the changes that were made to this year's Kyrie 8 shoe. They feel lighter, they feel softer, the grip is a little better, and just some solid improvements made overall from this model. It makes it really fun to play in, which is what has them finishing as the runner-up on my list. Topping the list and coming in at number 1 is the best shoe release of the year so far, is the Puma Melo 01. I know he was playing in these for the most of the part of 2021, but they didn't really hit the shelves until around late December, and they really started to become more available around January and February. That's whenever I was able to grab a pair, so that's why they are qualified to make this list. And they only retail for $125, which actually makes them the cheapest shoe to make this list. And these things are selling out every single time that they release in a new colorway, so now let's talk about why. So starting off with the appearance, the details are crazy on these for the Melo 01, so let me just kind of give you a rundown really quick. You're going to get some one-on-one text on the tongue for both shoes, and some not from here text just below the lacing system. And LaMelo actually chose to sign with Puma whenever he could have signed anywhere, because he wanted to work with a brand that allowed him to be authentic, because he is a pretty unique guy, especially growing up in the spotlight for his whole life, so we do kind of know that. But with this first shoe, he actually now joins only a handful of players like Walt Frazier, Ralph Sampson, Vince Carter as one of the few people to get a signature line with Puma, so I did think that was pretty sweet. And he got it really fast too, like it didn't really take him long after winning Rookie of the Year. But I mean, for the model, these have a really cool like floral embroidered look kind of around the heel, and then just beneath that is going to be a weave pattern kind of mixed into the midsole that looks really clean. Then the last thing I'll hit on is going to be that number 1 with some wings and a halo that's kind of positioned on the lacing setup. And it's actually going to be the same thing that he has tattooed on his chest. And then the same will go with that rare text that you see here on the bottom of this shoe. He's going to have that tatted on like his arm somewhere. So I feel like I could keep on going on with the details on this model, but now we'll go ahead and turn it over and look at these from like more of a performance and a material side, which is like just as impressive or more impressive. So for the cushioning, the Melo Ball 1 is going to get a nitro foam midsole that is built for superior responsiveness and comfort. I mean, honestly, that could not be more accurate. Like, this is one of the softer shoes on the market right now, in my opinion, and it's easily one of the better starts to a first shoe line as far as like comfort goes alone. You're going to get a soft feel from the jump, and it just really won't require a lot of break-in time. And the cushioning is really well balanced from the front to the back. I mean, definitely one of the highlights, definitely one of a few highlights actually on this shoe. So now let's talk about the others. So for the materials, the Melo Ball 1, it's not going to get any of those like premium touches such as suede, you know, anything like that. But that's more so because he just like specifically doesn't like that stuff. The Melo kind of prefers to use textiles on the upper, and that is pretty normal at this point. There aren't a ton of shoes kind of putting out suede or leather pieces on their basketball shoes anymore anyways. So the Puma went with like a mono mesh upper that is like going to offer some really good airflow to your foot and keep these on the pretty average side for the weight with the size 10.5 wing, 462 grams. So it's not going to be super light, but it's also not going to be heavy either. And then for the support, these don't like have any like added pieces to help, such as like a strap, an outrigger, or something like that. But the lateral containment is still really solid for your foot. I mean, once you have your foot in there, you're going to be locked in once you tighten these up. But I mean, my foot, like I just haven't had any issues as far as like sliding around, heel slippage, anything along those lines. So you are going to be covered there. But now to finish off with traction, that is another shining spot on the Melo Ball 1. You're going to get a pretty random traction pattern, but it might be like the best performing random traction pattern of all time, right there with the Curry 8s and the Curry 9s. Like, this is a super sticky shoe. I mean, like dusty court, clean court, whatever the condition, as long as you're wiping the shoes on a dusty court, like these hold up amazing, and they're pretty durable on the outsole too, with some thicker grooves. So I mean, honestly, using them outdoors would probably be in play. But Puma has a few different shoes out right now using the same like kind of rubber compound. Like, I know the Puma Fusion Nitro has the same setup down there, and some others. And I mean, it's like top of the line from my experience, just as far as traction and grip like that goes. But as for sizing, I did go true to size, and it was a perfect fit for me. The length and the width give you plenty of room, but I still wouldn't call it like a loose fit, so it just fit right about right. But overall, the Puma Melo Ball 1 is my favorite shoe to hoop in at the moment. Like, they are extremely soft, the traction is amazing, they don't feel cheap even though they are the most affordable shoe on this list. I mean, really, there just isn't a downside to this model from my experience, and that is why they are the top shoe to hoop in so far from 2022. That wraps up my list of the top 5 performance shoes of 2022 so far. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. If you're interested in buying any of these shoes that we hit on today, we're going to have links down below or in our bio, so feel free to check that out. And really quick, if you get some time, we do have a top 5 lightest shoes video, along with the top 5 budget-friendly options videos that are both out now. They just released. I'm thinking about doing a few more top 5 lists, so if you have any suggestions, just let me know down below in the comments. But until next time, I'm Landon from Shoewear. Peace.